thank you for showing up live. We're finding more and more people, they register and they're listening to the recording. So I'm glad that they're on, but I do want to make sure that we get you guys who are here, who took the time, made the effort to get on. A lot of times when I show up live, I feel like I'm more connected to the webinar and I don't get distracted. So thank you guys. I commend you all for continuing to seek out education and seek out community. I'm Sara Kooperman. I'm the CEO of SCW Fitness Education and WATERinMOTION. I'm here today with Mike Lieber, who is our fearless leader and new dad, Penelope Joy, right, Mike? Penelope Joy, newborn baby. And Mike Lieber is our cinematographer for SCW. I have the wonderful Alex Bryce, and I met Alex because he actually has worked extremely hard to train my son. And I went in to visit my son and I had a training session with him and I was just blown away. He has a master's degree in exercise science and an undergraduate degree in strength and conditioning and sports nutrition. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist, CSCS, from the National Strength and Conditioning Association. And he's currently pursuing his doctorate in physical therapy. Am I right, Alex?
That's right.
I know. I'm like, we have yet to change his bio. I'm embarrassed. Sorry about that. He also just recently moved and he was kind enough to still be on the webinar tonight. Melissa Layne is a Kinesiology Department faculty member with a master's degree in exercise physiology. She's an SCW faculty member. She says she's zoomed out, but she's here today because I don't know if she loves me or she's scared of me. We're probably on the edge with both, right? She's amazing. She's been a presenter with us for over 2 decades. She has authored 3 top nutritional certifications. She's teaching 21 hours of Zoom education when a full load is actually 12 at her university. So she is well known for being able to take complex theory and simplify it and make it so that people like me can still understand. So what I'd like you to do is everybody move your mouse, if you wouldn't mind, go to the bottom of the screen. You'll see the green share screen button. You all know, click on the chat. Look at that. Hello from Iowa, Mary, love it. And Jackie from Alabama. And hi, Donna from Houston. Type in your name and where you're from. I want to make sure you know how to use the chat. And I know you guys are on here for the same reason I am. How can I get more sleep and what are the benefits from sleep? Because sometimes if I know the benefits of a good night's sleep, it'll encourage me to continue and make time and make the effort to do these wonderful things. So lack of sleep has been linked to slowing of the metabolism, spikes in cortisol, even chronic diseases such as obesity and diabetes. And these wonderful people are going to join us. Kimberly Miller was supposed to be on. Unfortunately, she's in Florida. They had a big storm. She was unable to get on Wi-Fi. So we do appreciate her. She's been very kind to us and shared a lot of her expertise. And hopefully she will come back. So I see all these people from Pennsylvania to Georgia to Elgin, Illinois, Tampa, Maryland, Waikiki. Dan from Waikiki, what are you doing here? Go outside and enjoy the sunshine. Anyway, so we were just chatting and Alex, how do you identify if sleep is a real issue for you or your clients? What are these elements we should be looking for?
Well, in many ways you could say everything, right? Sleep is absolutely the foundation of what we do. It's vital for nearly every single process in our body. If you aren't sleeping well, really nothing else matters. And it is quite obvious in the disturbance to your life. Mood disturbance, training performance goes way down. We can certainly get more into hormonal or metabolic disruption along those lines, but more subjectively, if you're consistently, feeling like crap, you're probably having poor quality sleep. There's no way to cheat it. Even caffeine is only going to work as a Band-Aid for so long. It simply isn't something that you can fake or just push through. And it's a little bit like a multitasking fallacy. You can sort of convince yourself and do some mental gymnastics that, oh, I don't need a lot of sleep, or, oh, I have too much to do. But you're actually sabotaging your own productivity and your own ability to train and even just live and be happy and well adjusted.
I think it's so interesting that I can be working on some type of project, and when you get zoned in and you get to the point where if I read this same sentence over for a fifth time, I'm just not getting it. And if I go away and I wake up refreshed, like the next morning, I look at it and boom, I just hammer it out. And I think if we realize that we can be far more effective if we take the time and if we make the time to get a good night's sleep. Before we turn the camera on, we were chatting about some of the ways we can ensure that we get a good night's sleep. Melissa, what are some of the things that you recommend?
Well, I am a firm believer in doing things the natural way. So, of course, melatonin is your big hormone that will help you go to sleep. And cortisol is your hormone that will basically wake you up. And so we want to take all our stresses out of our life before we go to bed and up our melatonin. So some of the things that will help your melatonin go up and your cortisol levels go down are to get off any of your blue-green devices. So your TV, your computer, your phone, your Kindle, anything at least an hour before you want to go to sleep. You make more melatonin when the room is darker. So blackout curtains, or if you're in a hotel room and you have an alarm clock with those horrible bright numbers, cover it with a towel. You make more melatonin when your body is cooler. So there's actually been some research studies that say 62 is actually the temperature that will give you the greatest rise in your melatonin. And to sleep in loose or no clothing whatsoever. Anything that is tight or constricting actually limits how much melatonin you make. And then your cortisol will naturally start to lower at night unless you do something that increases your stress level. So if you are having that stressful time of life, which sometimes happens with menopause when your kids are out doing who knows what, and your parents are starting to depend on you more. If you spend some time journaling or something like that, that will help your cortisol levels go down. And then through the night, your cortisol levels actually go back up. And it's higher levels of cortisol that should wake you up in the morning on your own. If you're having to wake up with an alarm clock, that is a key indicator that you're not getting enough sleep.
That's very interesting. Now, Alex, what are some of the negative effects from a lack of sleep?
Well, having a background in strength and conditioning, one of the biggest ones that we can highlight is the drop in testosterone. Even a single night can absolutely tank the resting levels of your anabolic hormones. Interestingly, there is evidence that you can perform from a strength and power standpoint the day after a single night's poor sleep. But when we're looking at anything chronic, when we're lining up, weeks, months, years of poor sleep, nothing is going to be firing on all cylinders. And that's very obvious in performance. If I'm seeing a client who's consistently stagnating in their performance, one of the first things that I'm going to ask is, how are you sleeping? What does your sleep hygiene look like? Can we implement some of the things that Melissa had discussed? Love all of those as great ways to be able to look at sleep quality or sleep hygiene. I also will look to try to push sunlight exposure because sunlight exposure during the day is also going to help for all of those same reasons of regulating all of your diurnal hormones, and something that most of us just don't get enough of. One of the biggest benefits of having a dog. The other big issue that you'll typically see, you had mentioned that poor sleep can be linked to obesity. Poor sleep has been shown to directly increase calorie consumption the next day, including typically going to emotional eating or comfort foods. I'll give you a good example because I just drove cross country to relocate and I've had really poor sleep for over a week. Well, I had to go to CVS this morning. I'm sitting in the checkout line, and what do I see? This is not a product placement, I promise, but limited edition salted caramel Oreos. If I had had better quality sleep, I probably would have had enough presence of mind to say, you know what, I don't need those. Well, guess what? I bought them and they're gone.
And you know what's interesting is when you're postpartum, like after I have 4 kids. And I can't even believe I even remember how many years ago that was when they were little. But when they're babies and the babies are not sleeping, you get very tired. And for me, I don't really, it sounds kind of strange, I don't really feel hunger. The first signs for me that I need to eat is I'm just tired and I'll start yawning. So I think I'm hungry. So if I'm tired, I think I'm hungry and then I eat more. So to avoid Oreos, you should get a good night's sleep, which I think is key. But that's very interesting because people feel tired. They think, well, if I eat something, especially if I have something sweet, it'll pop me up. And I think that's what people think also about the caffeine. But I really do like what you said about the sunlight. Are there any other negative effects, Melissa, that you see from a lack of sleep?
I think Alex hit on the 2 biggest ones, and those are hormones. And we have the hormone that he was talking about is ghrelin. And ghrelin is the actual hormone that my students relate it to. Ghrelin makes your stomach growl. So when you are hungry, it's because your ghrelin levels are high. And research has showed that people who don't sleep or who sleep opposite their circadian rhythm actually make more ghrelin. So you make ghrelin when you don't sleep, you make less testosterone. So of course your workouts are not going to be quality. And you also have to look at growth hormone. Growth hormone and testosterone are 2 of the 3 hormones that help you build muscle. And testosterone is made mainly in REM sleep, and growth hormone is made mainly in stage 3 and 4 of non-REM. So you actually have 4 stages of non-REM sleep and then REM sleep. And throughout the night, you actually cycle through those. And when you first start during the night, they're very short. And as you sleep into the morning hours, all your stages get longer. And it's in the long stages that you make the most of your hormones. So you're looking at your hormones. We also know that sleep is when our gut bacteria replenishes itself because you're not eating. And we now know that gut bacteria plays such a big role in mental health, your immune system, all of those things. Sleep is when you lay down memories. So if one of the things you're noticing during the day is that you're having short-term memory loss, why did I walk into this room? It's going to be because you're lacking of sleep. Your body just goes into a state and returns everything to homeostasis when you're sleeping. And that plays a role in how you start over again when you're with your workout. Like Alex said, if you can't get in homeostasis at night because you're not sleeping, you're not ready to tear your body down again the next day in your workout so you can build it back up while you sleep.
That's really interesting. One of my, well, frankly, all 4 of my sons at one time were playing travel hockey. And 2 of them really kept it up and really went into their 20s playing hockey. One of them ended up, unfortunately, got a concussion, and we thought it was all better. And then he didn't tell us. He got like 3 other concussions he never told us about. And then he got a really bad one. And of course it interrupts your sleep. But another thing that happens, and something that I learned from this, is this poor kid had a concussion and your brain actually swells. It gets bruised because you banged it. And because of your skull, there's kind of no place for it to go. So it actually will push down almost into your neck, affecting your hormones even more. And then they put you in a dark room. Okay, so you're not supposed to get any of this sunlight. You don't get any exercise. You're in the dark room. But the only time they said that your brain really repairs is during sleep. So it gets into this pretty bad cycle. And another thing they said, Melissa, which was very interesting, which brings up, or I think directly relates to what you were talking about, the hormone interruption, is concussions severely affect your hormone levels, and that affects your emotionality. So these people that are sleep deprived get very emotional, increases in cortisol. There's, you know, and even it can kind of end up being a snowball effect. But I think that that's really fascinating. And we do want to improve our clients' sleep as well. So we have to be able to support this and tell them why they need their sleep, because of hormone stability, because of it'll help increase their performance, which will improve their strength. But what you were saying about growth hormones, and as women age, when they start going through perimenopause or menopause, how can they encourage this sleep if their hormones are just naturally interrupted? Melissa, what are your suggestions with this?
Well, Alex actually brought about a good one, not knowing that this question was coming up so soon, but estrogen and serotonin and melatonin are extremely related. So if you're in menopause, if you've already gone past perimenopause is actually right after a big push in an estrogen increase, because your body goes, let's see if we can have one more baby, which is why your sex drive is so high right before your estrogen levels plummet. So when estrogen levels plummet, serotonin plummets. When serotonin plummets, melatonin plummets. They're all related. One of the best ways to make serotonin is to go out in the sunlight. So spending time outside in the sun is a natural way to boost your serotonin levels. We now know that over 50%, some research says as high as 75% of our serotonin is made in our gut. So feeding our gut prebiotics, postbiotics, probiotics, all those things are going to increase the amount of serotonin, which is going to increase the melatonin. And then we have to look at the biggie that nobody wants to talk about, and that's alcohol. Because alcohol actually disrupts your circadian rhythm. Every time you drink alcohol, it has to be filtered through your liver. And in your liver, there is an enzyme called aromatase. And aromatase turns testosterone into estrogen. That's why some of your most serious bodybuilders take aromatase inhibitors, because they want to protect every little bit of testosterone that they possibly can. But you have aromatase because estrogen actually makes your blood vessels more pliable. So everybody has a little bit of aromatase, and you should. But when you drink alcohol, in direct proportion, your aromatase goes up, and your aromatase turns testosterone into estrogen, which is going to inhibit your workout, but it is going to also decrease your memory. It is going to ruin your circadian rhythm. It puts you to sleep quicker because it is a depressant, but it also wakes you back up in the middle of the night. So alcohol during menopause, even though women say it helps take the edge off, it actually makes things worse.
That's really interesting, because I used to adore red wine. Like, a friend of ours owns like 4 wine bars, and he's taught me how to, you know, just how to appreciate it, and I get to taste it and whatever. But I'll fall asleep, and then like 2 hours later, I'm wide awake, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And so what you're saying it does is it puts you into almost like a false relaxation phase, and then you wake right up.
you don't stay in your, you don't stay in your stages of non-REM and REM. They're totally disrupted.
And Alex, you're nodding, so I'm assuming you have something else to contribute. Like maybe beer is good, maybe wine is bad.
I'd love to tell you that that we could make an exception somewhere. And are we absolutely saying there is no place in a health and wellness lifestyle for alcohol? I don't want to go quite that far, but anybody who's really, really serious about their sleep quality and performance, you're going to have a really hard time arguing for alcohol in any way, shape, or form. Because as soon as we're no longer having normal sleep cycles, the cost benefit analysis to me simply isn't worth it. I'm not saying that I don't occasionally have a beer, because I do, but with this last week of poor sleep and high stress, guess what I did? Drank more than I had in previous months where I had essentially had nothing. And I'm sure that that contributed even greater to my own poor sleep quality over the last week. So we can even see that direct cause and effect of emotional disturbance, lower cognitive performance, and poor decision making. And we're looking
for decision making. Hold up the Oreos one more time.
Exactly.
Just for me.
Well, I gotta say, these ones are absolutely incredible. The salted caramel.
Put them away.
There's actually salt on the wafers themselves. It's great. So I don't regret that one, but the beers definitely. We're looking at something here that is completely systemic. In terms of like muscle recovery from a training session, that's about the only factor that we could really look at where you could lay on the couch and get about the same impacts. Anything from a hormonal, metabolic, or cognitive or brain perspective, sleep is the absolute foundation of everything else that's going to happen. And that's even one of the reasons that testosterone is considered to have a cognitive effect, because of these close relationships that we're seeing from a hormonal standpoint with memory formation, sleep, and cognitive performance.
And that for older adults, that's very, very important. I mean, I still experience this where I walk into a room and I'm like, what am I doing here? And then I walk back into my office and I look at something, oh, that's why I went into the kitchen. Go back into the kitchen, I'm staring. And then I'm like, oh, and I'm like, I have no idea why I'm here. Go back, see what I need, go back, get it, and then I come back. I listened to a wonderful TED Talk actually about memory loss, because to be honest with you, we start, forgetting things. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have early onset Alzheimer's. And so I start looking at it. That's not Alzheimer's. When you forget where you forget where you put your keys. What happens is when you look at the keys and you don't know what they are, and that's the difference. So at least that's a little bit thankful. I'm a little thankful for that. Now, Liv asked a great question. Is alcohol consumed earlier in the day? If it's consumed earlier in the day, is it less damaging to your sleep? So if I have a mimosa with brunch, is what's going to happen, Melissa?
Well, I answered Liv, and I'm going to be honest. I'm like Alex, and I'm not ever going to tell anybody that you can't have a cocktail. And my department has been under an extremely stressful time at the university, and we go day drinking because I am the one that one beer past 5 o'clock, and I will be up all night long. And I will be freaking miserable. And my students know it the next day. They're like, watch out, she's on the warpath. So I know that if I go out and have 2 drinks when I'm done at 3 o'clock, I can usually sleep better. And I don't know of any peer-reviewed research. Is it any better for me? Absolutely not. But as far as sleep quality, I can usually sleep through the night if I quit drinking by 5 o'clock. And I don't drink very much at all, maybe once a month. Most of the time at a mania. So, hasn't happened lately. But I don't know of any studies.
Oh, yeah. But I think that's a really good question. Alex, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, mechanistically, it would certainly make sense. I can't remember off the top of my head the exact rate at which your liver metabolizes alcohol. Maybe Melissa does. But regardless, if you're giving yourself 4, 5, 6+ hours for your liver to do its job, and you simply have less alcohol remaining in your system prior to entering sleep or trying to go to bed, it would certainly seem from a mechanistic standpoint to make sense that if you're going to do it, earlier is probably better.
You actually metabolize about 1 drink per hour, and that's assuming that your drink is about 1.25 ounces of true alcohol. So that timing is spot on.
Oh, great. The other thing I was going to ask is, I feel like I'm getting all personal. I'm getting this personal advice. My husband will wake up like at 4:30 in the morning so that he can get his workout in, and then he gets his steam, and then he has his breakfast, and he scoots off to work. So he's there very early and avoids all the traffic. And we're like, I think I was sharing that after dinner, we always go for a walk, and then we go upstairs and we're watching, it's Downton Abbey, which I know it's got blue light, but trust me, it's so boring. It's fabulous. You go straight to sleep. No alcohol necessary. But we go to bed, you fall asleep like at 9:30. I feel like I'm a 12-year-old and I've been sent to bed because I have to go, to school. Okay, here comes my dog. Thank you. But what I'm wondering is then on the weekend, it's like, Saturday comes and I'm taking a nap, and I'm trying to sleep in, but I can't sleep in because I naturally wake up at a certain time. Can you accumulate more sleep? Oh, stop shaking your head. No alcohol, and I can't. Can you catch up on your sleep? Is there such a Stop it, Melissa.
Well, when you see both of us shaking our heads at the same time, are you not going to believe us?
No, I want to, whatever, but you can't. Why can't you do that?
Research shows that the average American sleeps less than 7 hours a night, and less than 7 hours a night is actually considered short sleep. Anything over 10 hours is considered long sleep. And when you hit multiple nights of short sleep, you go into what is known as sleep debt. And research shows that you cannot make up for sleep debt by going into long sleep during the weekends.
Okay, so it's that 7 hours. And we're trying to at least hit that 7-hour mark. Maybe that,
Sarah, it's probably that you want to lay down and take a nap because our weekends are less stressful. Like if we go back up to Joanne's chat, she talked about taking a melatonin supplement, and Alex answered how we both feel, but it's our mind going into overdrive because we're thinking about what we have to do the next day or what we didn't do today or what is up with our kids. And so on the weekends, you're less stressed because you basically have 48 hours where you can go, hopefully, I'm not going to think about work. So that's probably why we tend to get more sleep on the weekends.
Interesting. All right. So Alex, you're going to have to elaborate a little bit on the natural side of melatonin. So instead of taking the pill or
right. In general, we would prefer natural production. Right? Supplements should be a supplement to everything else that you're doing within your life. And that's true of any supplement. There can be a time and place if someone individually feels that it is helping quite a bit. Previously, in another panel, we had talked about how many melatonin products are overdosed and many people take them too late in the day. In general, more in the neighborhood of, I think, 2.5 to 5 grams is really what's recommended. And normally you want to be taking that hours plural prior to sleep. But for all of the reasons and all of the tips that Melissa had given earlier, that's what we would always like to try first. And there are people who are going to have insomnia related issues. I was a diagnosed insomniac when I was a teenager, luckily grew out of it. And when you've exhausted all of your natural remedies is the time that you can start to explore under, medical guidance, more extreme measures if absolutely necessary. But in general, the vast majority of us have poor sleep hygiene, poor sleep quality, and there are many low-hanging fruit choices that can really help. I did want to touch real quickly just on the sort of like sleep surplus idea, because I have a good analogy there. There are very few things, very few processes in our body where we can essentially like store up extra, right? Or have a surplus. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is like supplementing with creatine monohydrate. You can essentially super compensate and have a little bit of saturation. But you want to think of most things in your body, especially sleep, as a garbage can. When it's full, it's 100% full. You can't overfill it. But when it's empty, you are in a lot of trouble. And it simply isn't something where, oh, well, I slept great for a month, so I've stockpiled extra REM cycles. It simply doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I wish I could take my Saturday nap and run with it. You also were, I saw your hands, you've got the Whoop ring. Alex, can you share about, how you're tracking your sleep with that and how that's helping you?
Sure. So this is actually just a regular wedding ring. Aura is the company that does their ring. I wear silicone rings just so that I don't have to take them off when I strength train, because I did try an Aura and I scratched it and bent it, so that wasn't going to work. This is my Whoop band. A lot of my time in grad school was on data tracking, sport performance tracking, where I'm looking at longitudinal information. For me personally, the more data points I can have, the better. I wouldn't necessarily say that the Whoop is for everyone, or that getting more quantitative in any of these measures are for everyone. For some people, that can lead to obsession or paralysis by analysis, but many people can benefit from just having more quantifiable information about how they are sleeping. And in general, Whoop does a very good job of that. What it does is there are two leads on the bottom, and what that allows is measure of heart rate variability, and it also essentially works as a 3D accelerometer, where it can track roughly sleep quality in a percentage, and it gets better at that over time based on the number of disturbances you have per night, your resting heart rate, and how that changes, and can essentially give you a breakdown of the cycles that Melissa had referenced earlier between REM and your other deep cycles, as well as your respiration rate. So you can have all of this information to really see. Michelle had mentioned that Fitbit does that too. There are more and more wearables that can provide you this type of information, because most of us aren't super quantitative about how we sleep. And again, like we had said before, if you feel great, you're probably sleeping pretty well. If you feel crummy, you are probably sleeping poorly. But it can just really take that next level of seeing how much time am I spending in bed, what type of quality sleep am I having, and then over time, if you use the Whoop journal, it can start to provide correlations of the behaviors that you are tracking. I track alcohol within my journal, whether or not I drank that day, and my then requisite sleep performance. So, I track my training in that manner, right? I write down everything that I'm doing from an exercise standpoint in a training journal. Why wouldn't I want to take my recovery that seriously as well?
Yeah, taking the recovery recovery has become a very strong buzzword throughout this pandemic, because I think people have been so stressful about their family and what's going on in their business, and you're just isolated. So that's very interesting. My son got the Whoop ring, and he was looking at it, and he discovered that he doesn't have enough REM. And so they're actually thinking that he's got some sleep apnea, that he's got, and he snores like crazy. I mean, literally, you close the door to his bedroom, it's frightening. You hear it right through it. And my husband's the same. And my husband keeps telling me, oh, honey, it just lulls you to sleep. Trust me, it doesn't lull me to sleep. It doesn't lull anyone to sleep. I am wondering, somebody asked, they said 62 degrees, Melissa. That's kind of crazy.
It is.
That's cold.
It is, but that's not a specific for everybody. If that's too cold for you, then turn it up to 66 or 68. I mean, it's what research was done, and everybody's body is different, and it depends on how much fat insulation you have. And again, Alex answered the question very well. Cooler is better. So, you know, I know a lot of men that have to have it at 58. Get me another blanket because I'm back up there at 60. Alex raised his hand. Yep, throw on another blanket. And can I add on to something with the trackers that we have talked about? If you've noticed, I'm not familiar with the Whoop, but Alex talked about heart rate variability. And if you know about the ring from Aura also talks about heart rate variability, and heart rate variability is getting to be a big buzzword, and not a lot of people are familiar with this. And one time, Sara, you actually threw me into a Len Kravitz session on heart rate variability. So I had to become an expert extremely quickly. I think 3 weeks before Florida Mania, you told me I was doing this.
And that's why you love me. I know.
Heart rate variability simply means how fast we show a change in our heart rate. And heart rate variability is one of the few things where a lower number, let me think about how to say this. We want to see our heart rate variability go up quicker and come down quicker. So we want to see a big spike in heart rate variability. And one of the number one indicators of overtraining or insomnia or lack of sleep is a low heart rate variability. So here's what I teach to my students. If I'm driving down the interstate, we have a big interstate that goes to our university, and somebody pulls over in front of me. Ideally, I want my heart rate to go, oh crap, get out of the way. My heart rate goes up high and then returns to normal quickly. Whereas somebody who has insomnia, is not sleeping, is overtraining, is going to have a low heart rate variability, and that limits their reaction time. So that plays a role in also their workouts. If they have a low heart rate variability driving down an interstate, they're going to end their workout, and that's not what we want. So tracking heart rate variability has become very, very popular.
And what about sleep and training? Alex, you're nodding, but so I want you to definitely chime in here about heart rate variability. What about if we overtrain? And how do we know if we're overtraining to correct it? I mean, because everybody on this call, all of us, you guys are a little bit nuts. We're the only people in the universe that appreciate waking up in the morning and going, oh my gosh, it's killing me. What did I do yesterday? I'm going to do it again. You know, we're a little bit strange. So when do we know we're overtraining, and can you contribute to some of the things, excuse me, Melissa just brought up?
Absolutely. Yeah, heart rate variability and heart rate are two of the easiest things to track to inform you as to, where you are from a recovery and performance standpoint. That's a great analogy in terms of driving a car, right? A lot of people misunderstand HRV as, oh, higher means more sympathetic activity or lower means more parasympathetic activity. But really what we want is the ability to switch quite rapidly between those two systems. So it's more, what is your body's almost agility to be able to increase sympathetic tone rapidly when needed and increase parasympathetic tone rapidly when needed, because both are absolutely vital for different processes. Just for a little bit of context, sympathetic is typically considered fight or flight, right? Whereas parasympathetic is more rest or relax. Overtraining is something that I know quite a bit about because my grad school advisor was the world expert on overtraining. This is going to sound a little bit like semantics, but it's an extremely important discussion to have. Pretty much everybody on this talk is not overtrained. And what they could absolutely be is under recovered, poor nutrition, poor sleep hygiene, but really overtraining syndrome is a very specific definition. And what that truly means is that performance has been decreased for months to years. And the only populations where you see true overtraining syndrome, and it is a syndrome because there is no single biomarker that is diagnostic for overtraining. We can't actually bring someone into a doctor's office or a lab and run a blood panel and say, you have overtraining syndrome or you do not. It is instead a significantly elongated reduction in performance and severe mood disturbance. So it actually has the greatest parallels to depression. And the only populations where you really see true overtraining are in elite endurance athletes and perhaps some college students who are trying to juggle training and school and being away from home for the first time and all sorts of things. It's also extremely challenging to study for that reason, because typically a training study is going to be like 8 to 12 weeks, and it's almost impossible to induce that. So we sort of have a continuum, right, of just under recovery. And then there's a terminology of functional overreaching, of sort of pushing your body at or even slightly above 100% of what you can recover from for a short.
This is like what we're seeing with all these Olympic athletes, like
yes,
Simone Biles, and we look and we go, that is overtraining. It's
not. It's overreaching, which is really only useful in elite athletes. More and more literature has come out pushing or rebutting the idea that overreaching is functional or needed for the vast majority of people. And really, it's only if you're looking for that little extra 0.5% of performance that's the difference between a gold medal and a silver medal. Otherwise, it simply isn't necessary and probably isn't smart, because that type of load management or just total load is where you do start to run into the risk of injury, burnout, staleness, depression, all of the different terms that you want to use for mood disturbance as well. Because if your training should make you feel better, right? Should help you feel happier, more at peace. Bumps and bruises are normal, right? It's totally normal to wake up and have something feel a little bit achy. We absolutely have to, or even just delayed onset muscle soreness. We absolutely have to differentiate those two things. That's going to happen from training hard and from being active. If we're talking that is staying for weeks or months, then we could start to get into the terminology of non-functional overreaching. That's a significant problem, and that can take weeks or sometimes even longer to return back to baseline. If somebody's truly overtrained, and this is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine because that term gets thrown around all the time in the fitness industry and people have no idea what it actually means. That's somebody who's been continuously ignoring the signals of their body, because normally your body will just shut down at non-functional overreaching, and you'll sleep and you'll stop training and you won't want to walk into the gym. It's only the crazy of the crazies who are going to continue to ignore their body and force themselves to continue to get up over and over again until they are truly overtrained. And that can take years to actually recover from. And almost no one on earth is able to truly push themselves to that level. As soon as we start to see those warning signs, those red flags of I'm consistently feeling bad, I'm having disturbed sleep, mood disturbance, all those things, it's time to then take a step back and say, okay, what's going on here? Obviously, I have plateaued or perhaps even stagnated, and I'm under recovering, or something is going on, and we can self-correct well before that.
And there was an interesting question Michelle brought up. She says sometimes her muscles are so sore that it affects her sleeping. She wakes up in the middle of the night. She feels like she needs to stretch, and in order to go back to sleep, she has to stretch. Melissa, you started answering that. Can you share your response?
I am a firm believer in rolling, foam rolling, lacrosse ball rolling, getting your fascia lined up, stretched out, back to homeostasis. And I find that when I foam roll, not forever and not forcefully, but when I do gentle foam rolling before I go to sleep, I sleep like a baby. I hit my hips bother me because of my hip replacements. So I hit the top of my legs, I hit the bottoms of my feet. And if I'm carrying a lot of stress from work, the lacrosse ball backed up to a wall on my upper back. And I literally, it's as good as taking a hot bath, or sometimes I hot bath and foam roll.
Very nice. That does sound really helpful. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the clock.
Yeah,
I
we're over.
can't even believe it's 6:45. I really have enjoyed this. I can't thank you guys enough for sharing with us. I'm going to show you guys what's coming up next. We have our wonderful Midwest Mania coming up. You can see the site. You can see we have 100% guarantee, which is wonderful. It gives you a little bit of peace of mind so you can register for a live conference. And I'm going to share a video with you guys.
Wake up to the world you've been missing. Time to jump out of bed in the morning. No dead, no alive, now we're living. Can you feel it in the air that you're breathing? Time to show 'em what you're made of. Let's get back on track. Are you ready for a come on? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all around? Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all around? Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all around? Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all around? Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all around?
How exciting. Wonderful that we're having a live conference. You guys, we're not even mailing a full brochure. We're asking you guys to just click and download your own brochure that you can either just save on your computer or you can print out at your leisure. But we're very, very pleased to have be able to go live. We're excited because Midwest is going to be live, Dallas is going to be live, and so is Boston. So that is thrilling. We also have our certification smash coming up in September. So if you're looking to begin a new program, to teach a new program, please take a look at them. We've got 16 different certifications that we're offering. So I'm going to put in the chat box, ask Mike to put in the chat for the Midwest site, which is scwfit.com/Midwest. Check it out. We hope to see you live. I'm so excited. And thank you, Alex, for joining us. And thank you so much, Melissa. It's a pleasure to see you guys. Alex, I hope your move goes well. Get rid of the Oreos. Everybody have a great night. Thank you, Mike Lieber, for helping us make this happen. Take care, guys.